I just want to welcome you all and thank you for joining the webinar this morning. I really appreciate everyone's time and the opportunity to present our solutions to you. The theme of today's presentation is accounts payable automation and document management. The focus will be around the Timberscan suite of products developed by us here at Core Associates. As Patrick mentioned, since we have a blended audience today, I'm going to spend time reviewing, the basic concepts and technology for our non-Timberscan users. And then for those of you that already use Timberscan, as I go through the presentation, I'll be covering some of our, newer offerings that will enable you to further leverage your investment in Timberscan, just by really expanding on those productivity and efficiency gains of moving to a paper-free environment. Since we have a lot to cover, I'm going to keep the PowerPoint presentation brief, but I do want to touch on some of the highlights and key benefits of Timberscan before we head into the actual application. And these are some of the key areas that I'll be focusing on as I go through the presentation. All right, Timberscan is the industry-leading workflow automation solution for the accounts payable approval process. In addition to bringing you into an electronic environment, Timberscan will streamline your data entry and approval process as well as reporting. The approval routings, they're very flexible and they're based on your business rules. So they're defined and set up by you and then executed automatically by the system. And since everything is captured electronically, there's no need to rekey data. And if you choose to use the optical character recognition or the OCR technology, your data entry can be reduced by up to 90%. You can reduce the duration of the approval process by using Timberscan Go. Your invoice approvals can be done remotely on a tablet or a smartphone. You no longer have to wait for your approvers to be in the office. And one of the key benefits of Timberscan is having full visibility to where your invoices are in the process. So accounting can see who has what, how long they've had it, and the total dollars. So that improved transparency really helps to better manage the invoice cycle, and it cuts down on the invoice processing times. Timberscan does have a special emphasis, I'll say, on AP automation, but it also provides a complete enterprise content management solution for your company. All documents and content can be stored in a central repository for easy access and retrieval. The system also provides a powerful search engine and reporting tools to be able to quickly gather information, whether it's for your own internal use or for external consumers, such as auditors. You can set up automated workflows for any document, such as change orders or maybe bid documents. So workflows not limited to just accounts payable. And you can also keep your sensitive information like personnel or HR related documents secure using our document type security. I want to touch on a few key distinctions about Timberscan. It's a single system and platform that provides data entry point validation and seamlessly integrates with your Sage software. It's also a collaboration tool. It provides an audit trail and visibility into your financial information about your jobs and your properties. So not all systems show what's in Sage as well as what's in the approval process to have that full picture view like Timberscan does. Timberscan is proven technology. The first release was in 2004, and it's currently used by roughly 2,000 companies and 30,000 users across the globe. Because the software has been around for 15 years, Timberscan has been built on many years of direct input and feedback from our customers. And these are companies similar to your businesses, construction companies, specialty contractors, property development and real estate management companies. And that direct inputs really shaped our product and influenced the design of our software. And I think you'll see that here in a few minutes when we get into the software. We're also the only AP routing and approval system designed exclusively for Sage 300 CRE. And I'd like to point that out because I do think it's an important consideration when selecting a solution. And I think you'll appreciate that in the depth of the integration as we go through the presentation. Our approach was to try to replicate the Sage AP user experience as much as possible within our system. So you can think of Timberscan really as an extension to your Sage software. Right, this diagram here illustrates our suite of products. Today, I'm going to be focusing on the items here in the center in this white box. Right, these are what I'll call our server-based products, and Timberscan here is at the heart of those. I'm also going to talk about Acquire Automation, Capture, Commander, and I'll also be demonstrating Timberscan Go. Go is one of our cloud-based products, but this is where what you would use to do your remote invoice approvals. Now, these three items up here, the Acquire Automation, Capture, and Commander, these are add-on products to Timberscan. Timberscan Go is included with the suite, so any Timberscan users have access to Go with no additional cost. All right, kind of starting here with Capture. It uses optical character recognition technology, and what it does is it reads the text from the invoices you acquire into Timberscan, right? And then it'll do the data entry automatically based on templates that you set up for your vendors. And it's a one-time setup, and I'll walk you through an example of that when we get into the software. The Acquire Automation, that will allow you to bypass the step of acquiring invoices into Timberscan, right? So you set up vendor profiles, and when the invoices come into the system, it'll take those invoices, it does the page sorting automatically, and then it assigns those invoices to a data entry group that's referenced in that profile, that vendor profile setup. Now, we're in the process of marrying together the Acquire Automation and Capture, and that's due out sometime before the end of this year. Once that's complete, if you use those two products together, as the system's looking to that Acquire Automation vendor profile, it's also going to check automatically to see if there's an OCR template on file for that vendor. And if there is, it's not only then going to put the invoice in the correct data entry queue, it's going to separate the pages for you, and then it's going to complete the data entry based on that OCR template that you have set up. All right, so this can be a really big time saver for you. The Commander product, you can think of that really as a print driver, and it allows us to email documents and reports from Sage, and then also send them those documents to Timberscan AIM already indexed. So within the Commander starter pack, we provide purchase orders, pay slips, AR statements, change orders, and lease expirations. But if we just look at the purchase order, I'll say as an example, what it does is when you print your purchase order from Sage, if you print it using Commander, it can automatically email that purchase order out to your vendor, and then it would send an image of that purchase order document into Timberscan AIM, automatically indexed for you, and then that purchase order would be available as a supporting document to attach to your invoice when it comes in. All right, now beyond Timberscan, I'm just going to touch on Core Cloud here for a minute, also known as CCS as we call it, which is our cloud-based electronic mobile e-form solution. And with CCS, we wanted to leverage the success that we had with Timberscan and building an automated workflow process around accounts payable and just extend that concept to other areas of the business. So within CCS, if you look over here on the left, we have solutions for mobile time entry, credit card reconciliation and expense reporting, as well as field purchasing, receiving, and inventory management. We also have an e-forms wizard that you can use to create your own forms, really giving you the ability to turn any paper document into a mobile form. And then CCS integrates with both Timberscan as well as Sage. Right, we're not gonna look at Core Cloud today. This could be a separate webinar on its own, but I did want to just mention it as it's part of our product suite and just to give you an idea of where it fits into the product landscape. Okay, last slide before we get into the software, just lays the groundwork nicely for the AP routing and approval workflow process and provides a nice illustration so you know what to expect if you're to use the Timberscan software. I'm going to start up here in the upper left-hand corner. Now, the first step in the process is getting documents or invoices here into Timberscan, and there's a few ways to do that. We're going to start from the time you receive those invoices. If you're getting them in the mail, hard copy still, you would just take those and scan them in using a network copier or scanner. If you're getting them in electronically and you have a centralized AP inbox set up where you have all of your vendors and subs emailing their invoices, we have this email monitoring tool that we use that can monitor that inbox all day long. So as emails are coming in, we can just automatically take the attachments from those emails and then move those to a network folder that you specify. and the Timberscan can connect to that folder and bring all of those invoices in automatically, or just, cherry pick certain ones you might want to bring in at that moment. And this email monitoring tool, this is free. It comes with Timberscan. If you marry that or use Acquire Automation as well, it's going to basically eliminate this acquire process. And when we look to when the email monitoring is looking to those emails and taking those attachments and bringing them into that network folder, it's going to compare those to those vendor profiles that we talked about. And then based on the vendor profiles and the email address, that incoming email address, it will sort and order those pages, and it's going to move it to the data entry queue down here. If you marry that with OCR, it's going to take it a step further. And in addition to putting it into the proper data entry queue, it will also complete the data entry based on those vendor templates that you've set up. Okay? But you don't have to use Acquire Automation or Capture, and you could actually use them independently. They don't have to be used together. But those are just some of the options that you have available as far as getting invoices, in the door. Now, if there's any Procore users in the group, we just recently released our Procore integration, so I did want to mention that. And this would allow any invoices that originate in Procore, we can now consume them automatically into Timberscan for you. Great. Now, getting into the data entry, a couple things that I wanted to point out here is if you use Timberscan, whether you're doing your data entry manually or you're having it done using the Capture product, it will be done within Timberscan, so it would no longer be done in Sage. We also link to your Sage vendor file maintenances. So within Timberscan, we have access to your vendors, your jobs, your cost codes, your GL accounts, and the like. When you're doing your data entry, once the system has enough information to know what to do with that invoice, we're going to go ahead and route it out based on your workflow rules that you've set up. And we'll send an email to those approvers letting him or her know that they have invoices that need your attention. We also, again, have the Timberscan Go application, so your approvers don't have to come into the office. They can do those approvals remotely using a smartphone or tablet. Once you get through the review and approval process, we have this final review step. And this is just a final opportunity here to get a last set of eyes on things, to make sure that all of your coding's been done, verify tax information, if you have supporting documentation requirements, to make sure that those have been fulfilled before those invoices will get moved over to Sage. So the idea is, as you progress through this routing and approval process, at any point here, you can attach supporting documents to the invoice, whether it's a purchase order, receiving ticket, insurance documents, whatever you want to collect and manage relating to that invoice. And then your end result is a packet of information that's not only available in Timberscan, but then also gets sent over to Sage and is available via the paperclip option within Sage. Once those invoices are in Sage, your process for selecting those invoices for payment and processing your payments is going to be the same. We do have an option in Timberscan to be able to take those payments and attach those to that packet of information that I just mentioned. So then you'll have everything from the time you receive that invoice in the door through to you pay it, all together in one nice packet that's available for easy access and reference. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and head into the software. All right, this here is the main screen of Timberscan. You can see up here, these are all my function buttons and my action buttons, but everything you need to access is right here on the top. And we have these nice, big bright buttons. It's very user-friendly, very easy to navigate. We also have the dashboard view here. This is optional and it's configurable by user. So over here, these are all the different, widgets or tiles you'd have available to have on your dashboard. Or you could turn the dashboard off altogether if you don't want to use it. The idea here with the dashboard is just to give you a quick, easy way to be able to, hone in on invoices that might need your attention, whether you're monitoring by maybe payment date or discount. If you hover over these circles here, in this, we're looking at number of invoices by vendor and the dollar amounts. Up here on the top, these are my functions. And as I navigate through, you'll see that the action buttons on the bottom will change. So the first step here in the process, I'm going to go ahead and turn my dashboard off here. The first step in the process is to acquire some invoices into the system. Now, to do that, I just have here as an example, these are some invoices that I received in my inbox. So I'm just going to take these and drag and drop them into Timberscan. I need to tell the system down here what I'm acquiring. So in this case, it's invoices. This is where I would assign my data entry group. Now, if you're using the email monitoring tool, then you would use this open file option. And this is what's going to allow you to browse out to the network. So wherever you have those attachments going, which is really the invoices, you would just navigate to that folder. And, if you had 100 invoices in here, you could pick and choose certain ones, or you could, highlight everything, and you could just hit open, and that would bring all of those invoices into Timberscan automatically for you, or you could just pick and choose certain ones. If you're using the acquire automation, you would bypass this step altogether. Now, at this stage, you're really doing two things. You're sorting and ordering your pages, and you're doing some initial quality, control on the document. Over here on the left, these are my thumbnails of the pages that I just acquired. Up here on the top, these are my function buttons. I have some down here on the bottom as well if I want to make the image larger or smaller or navigate through the pages. I can also use the wheel of my mouse to make the image larger. And then I also have some control buttons over here on the right. Timberscan, if you're not using the acquire automation, it will still try to do some sorting and ordering for you. So in this example, the first document that I acquired was a single page PDF. So Timberscan interpreted that as a one invoice. The second document was a 2-page PDF. So in that instance, Timberscan interpreted that as one invoice with 2 pages. But if I click on the individual pages here, I can see I have invoice 393. And on the second page, I have invoice 394. To make this a separate invoice, all I have to do is I would click on the page and I either say mark as a new invoice up here, or I can just right click and say insert break above. Now I have 3 separate invoices. Over here on the right, if if the image was sideways or upside down, or maybe it was a little grainy, I can despeckle, I can rotate, I can deskew, I can put annotations on here. I have a highlighter option. I have a freeform pen I can use as well. And then the highlighter and the pen, I also have different colors available as well as different thicknesses. But once I'm happy that the quality of my documents is good, I've done my sorting and ordering, I would go ahead and hit the process button, and that's going to move this batch of invoices to whatever data entry group I've assigned down here. Right now, these are set up by you. I just have one here in my demo system. But if you had, maybe multiple locations or different people doing data entry and you wanted to have multiple groups, you could have as many of those as you want. Okay, now I'm going to stop here for a moment and touch on the capture template. These are all the different samples that I have here in my demo system. I'm going to take a look at the H&D supply as an example and show you how you go about setting up these capture templates. All right, so what I'm doing here is I'm telling the system when I get an invoice in from H&D Supply, where to look on this 8 by 11 sheet of paper to find key pieces of information. And the items that I can define are noted across the tabs on the top here. Invoice number, invoice date, a balance, description, job, and a commitment. Now, the first step in setting up a template, I have to select my anchor. And what the anchor does is it just tells the system a unique piece of information so it knows where this invoice is coming from. In most cases, we're just going to use the company name, which is what we did here in this example. You can see what's highlighted. I'll come back to the identifier here in just a moment, but if we go ahead to the invoice number, if you were setting this template up for the first time, this highlighter would be in the center of your page, and you would just come in and you would drag it and drop it over the invoice number, wherever it is on the page for this particular company. Over here on the left, this is my results panel, so it tells me how the system interpreted what I just highlighted. So if all looks good, then you could move on to your invoice date. Right here it's gray, so it might be a little bit harder to see, but same concept. It's going to be in the middle, the highlighter. You're going to drag it and drop it over that information. The balance due is on the bottom of this first page here, but we do support multi-page templates as well, so the system's smart enough to know that it would go to the last page and grab the balance off the last page. The description, you could have it be anything you want here. In this example, this is just what we highlighted on this template, but whatever you highlight is going to default into the description field on your invoice. The job and the commitment, if the vendor or the subcontractor is putting that information on their invoice, then you could go ahead and highlight that and have that populate as well. If not, then you would just use the skip option down here. And then the same with the commitment. If it's on there, great. If not, you could skip it. And the review tab here, this just gives you a little summary over here on the left of everything that you've highlighted here. And this here is what I would call your header level information. You can set up some default coding rules at the line item level as well. And that's where this identifier can be used also. In this case, I have this account job number highlighted. Now, at a minimum, I can tell the system, I can map the vendor name to my vendor number within Sage. So I would come in here and say H&D supply equals, this vendor in Sage. This is a drop down of my Sage vendor file here. But you can also use, this identifier to be creative and set up some other defaults for you. For reoccurring invoices or utility bills, things along those lines, this can be really handy where you could say, every time I get an invoice from H&D Supply with this account number on it, you could have it automatically, default to a certain GL account. If it's a phone number maybe and it belongs to like a project manager or something, you could say every time you see this phone number, I want it to go to this job and this category and cost code. If you know for a certain supplier, maybe you use them for materials 95% of the time, so maybe you want to have the category automatically default as well. If it was maybe someone you only used for equipment, you could have maybe a category and a cost code in that default. You can always override the defaults during the data entry, right? So these are just defaults. The idea here with the templates is to, really just try to be creative as possible to have as much of that default coding done for you automatically. All right, I'm going to pause for a moment before we go ahead and look at the data entry. Is there any questions on the acquire process or setting up the OCR templates? Okay. All right, so we'll go ahead and take a look at invoice entry now that we have some invoices into the system. And there's a couple of ways you can get to the data entry. You can come up here to the invoice entry, and the system is going to tell you you have 11 invoices that need to be entered. So if you click on that, it's going to bring you in to the first one in the batch. Now, alternately, you could use this file option, and this is going to show you this kind of card view here of all of your invoices. So if you just wanted to navigate to a specific invoice, you can use this view to do that as well. So I'm just going to select this power equipment rentals invoice for the purposes of the demonstration. Right up here on the top, you have your function buttons, same ones down here in the bottom and over on the right. So we tried to keep the layout and the look and feel very consistent throughout the application to make it very easy to navigate. Down here on the bottom, this is your data entry grid. Now, this will mirror exactly what you have set up in Sage. If you use, different data entry grids by vendor type, those will all carry through here into Timberscan. Your function lookup buttons will work in here. You'll get, similar warning messages within Timberscan. You can also move this data entry grid If you have dual monitors in your AP department and you want a full page image on one monitor and your data entry grid on a second monitor, you can do that as well. If you know what your vendor is, you can just come in here and start typing it in, or you can use your function buttons or the list button here. I can do a lookup based on vendor number, vendor name, or the address. You can also just start typing in letters and it's going to narrow down the search results for you. So I'm going to select my power equipment rentals. You'll notice I'm getting a compliance warning. If you use compliance tracking in Sage, you'll get those warnings, and you can always click on the details to see what you need to investigate here. For the invoice number, now again, I'm showing you, this is I'll say the manual data entry. I'll show you an example of what it would look like if you use the OCR software as well. And if you use the acquire automation, it's going to bypass that step that we just looked at of acquiring, and it'll bring those invoices right into the data entry for you and at this stage. Right, so when I enter my invoice number here, as soon as I tried to tab to the next field, I got this duplicate invoice warning message. And I like to show this here as an example because I think it's a nice illustration of the depth of the integration with Sage, and also an example of what we call data entry point validation, where the system immediately lets me know if there's a problem. I don't have to enter 10 line items in, go to hit save, and then have the system tell me that there's a duplicate. I'm alerted right away. Now, as a user, if I don't recall that particular invoice and I want to go ahead and do some further investigation, right from this screen, I can hit the history button, and this is going to show me all invoices for that vendor. Now, real world, you probably have pages and pages for a particular vendor. So all of these columns up here are sortable and searchable. You can just start typing in, and it's going to immediately narrow down those records for you. If we come over here, you can look at the detail. Now, this is telling me how this invoice was coded. If it's tied to a commitment, you have these tooltips available throughout, so I can see the original commitment amount, any change orders, the total, what's been paid, what's been invoiced, what's still in Timberscan in the approval process, and then my balance. For the job, I can see the revised contract amount, job to date billed, what's in Timberscan, and then my balance. And then I also have the tooltips here at the cost code level and for the category. Right, now these tooltips you have, all throughout Timberscan, so it's not just this one screen here. And then right from here, I can see the actual invoice and any supporting documents that I've collected. So in this case, I have the invoice with some annotations, this review and approval page, right? So this is kind of the history as it went through Timberscan, when it was received, who did the data entry and when, who approved it, who did that final review stage, and then it was when it was posted into Sage. In this case, I have a purchase order that was attached, and then I also have a copy of the check that paid this invoice. So the other really cool thing you can do right from here, you could just hit this email button, and this will package up this attachment for this packet as a PDF attachment to this email. You can access your global contact list here, and you could send an invoice or email off to your vendor just saying, hey, this is a duplicate invoice, please see attached, or whatever you want to say in that instance. And then the email that you send will be added under this View Notes option. Right, so at any point, you can always add a comment about this invoice. And then any comments you add or any emails that are originated within Timberscan will also show in this log. So this is a nice collaboration tool where you can see all of the correspondence and communication relating to this invoice all throughout its life cycle. Right, so I was able to see all of that information, and I didn't even have to leave the data entry screen here. Now I'm going to go ahead, I know this is a duplicate, so I'm just going to go ahead and append the invoice number to carry on here. Now, this here is my header level information. Underneath that, this is my line item detail. Now, if the invoice relates to a commitment, you could either type that in or again, use your list button or your lookups. And this is going to pull up all open commitments for this particular vendor. So in this case, I have 2. So I'm going to go ahead and select this first one here. And in this case, it's a multi-line commitment. You could either select all line items or you could select certain line items. Now, when I do that, again, you'll see the compliance warnings here. But you'll notice that commitment information automatically populated here for me. So Timberscan pulled that right from the commitment record in Sage. Now over on the right here, I have some summary level information about the commitment, the original amount, what's been invoiced, what's in Timberscan, my balance. If the invoice was going to put you over that commitment amount, it would show up here in red as a negative. And then if I wanted to see more details about the commitment, you can use this button here, and this gives you the line item detail with any change order information. Now, at this stage here, I can also attach supporting documents. So this is going to bring up any supporting documents that are on file based on the vendor and or job combination. Right, so in this case, I have a number of documents here, potential matches that popped up that you could attach to this invoice. Now, where the system gets this list from here, as you acquire documents into Timberscan, one of the options is to acquire what we call supporting documents. When you set up Timberscan initially, you'll define your document categories and document types, and you can also define what types of documents you would want to be supporting documents. And then when you acquire those documents, you set up your indexing based on the document type, and when you acquire it, you have to do the data entry on those documents and populate that indexing information. So that's how Timberscan knows what to put in this list. Now you'll notice I have this keep open option. This is very nice with respect to purchase orders. If you have a purchase order on file and maybe it's not 100% fulfilled and there's still additional line items that need to be invoiced, you could attach it to this particular invoice, but say keep open, and that way when subsequent invoices come in, you can attach it to those as well. So here I would just tick off the ones I want to attach to this invoice, hit attach, and then the system's going to go ahead and place those as thumbnails here, and then they'll follow the invoice through its life cycle. Other things I can do from a data entry standpoint, I can always put the invoice on hold if I had maybe questions for the vendor and I wanted to get it out of my queue for now and come back to it later. I could always do what I call a parallel route. If this came to me from a data entry perspective, but it should have went to somebody else for data entry, you can always route it to another person at that same level. You can also use this attach button, which allows you to just browse out to your network, and you could attach pages that way. You can also use the change type option, and this gives you the ability to set up some exception rules where, if maybe you had a high priority invoice that you needed to get a check cut right away and you didn't want it to go through your normal routing and approval, you could set up these are user defined. I have one called automatic approval. You could have something called high priority, urgent, whatever you want to call them. And it just gives you some flexibility, like I said, to set up some exceptions and override your rules in a particular instance. Okay, now this button is controlled by security as well. So, you would only give maybe certain people access to the button. Now, this is, like I said, what would be the manual entry. I'll show you an example of the OCR here in a moment. The other thing that I just wanted to mention before doing that was, now your routing rules. You can, enter as many line items here as you want, and you can enter minimal information if you want. If your process for routing is to route based on job, and if you want your approvers to perform the coding, you could just put in the job number, and then the system will route it based on the job, and the approver could do the coding. If you want the data entry person to do the coding, or some of that's coming in with the OCR, you could do that as well, and maybe the approver just reviews it for accuracy. But those routing rules are very flexible. A lot of companies use job, but it doesn't have to be. It could be based on, vendor, invoice type, general ledger account, maybe a job and cost code combination. You could have multiple levels of approval. So it could go to, a number of people within the organization. And then you could also have some dollar thresholds built in, where if it's over a certain dollar amount, you might want it to go to another individual for approval. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close out of here and show you an example of one that's brought in with the OCR. So here this H&D supply, hopefully this looks familiar. This is the template that we looked at. Now, when I come in here, you'll notice the data entry down here has been done for me already. All right, so when this invoice was acquired into the system, it looked to the template on file and went ahead and populated all this header level information for me, and also set up or did some line item defaulting based on those coding rules that we had established in the template. Great, now you can again override any of this information that you need to. All right, before we head into the approval side, I just want to spend a few minutes taking a look at some of the reports and inquiries in Timberscan, because this is a very powerful portion of the program. We have 18 standard reports available within. I don't have them all even on my menu here, and we certainly won't have time to cover all of them. I will say, if the reports are something you want to take a closer look at, on our website, we actually did a webinar that focuses just on reports and the dashboard. If anyone wants to go and take a closer look at it, just goes into a bit more detail on all the reports that we have available. For today, I'm just going to highlight a couple here. The invoice status report, this shows us all invoices that are in the review and approval process within Timberscan. So here I have 27 total with the total dollars, and then you can just keep drilling into this. This is the breakdown of the 27 invoices. I have 11 that are in data entry, 5 in final review, 1 with Robert, and 10 here with Doug. And then you can drill into any of these further. This is Doug's 10 invoices. I could see how long they've been assigned to Doug here. So if he's been sitting on anything, who assigned it, and some high level information about the invoice. And I can always link to the image here as well. So if I wanted to go ahead and, send Doug off an email saying, hey, what's going on with this one? I could go ahead and do that. All right, so this is a really nice management tool and just speaks to that visibility that I mentioned at the onset here. Just lets you know where everything is in the process and helps to kind of tighten down that review and approval process. We have a similar report, shows the same information, but it's just job centric. And we have some other nice reports for productivity tracking. So the invoice turnaround analysis report, that's really nice. It tracks from the time the invoice is acquired till the time it goes to the export queue, so you can see how long it's taking to process invoices through the system. All right, some of the inquiries here. This job cost inquiry is really nice, and this is what you would use if you need to produce any kind of billing backup for like a T&M or a cost plus job, or maybe a loan draw or something along those lines. You could select, individual jobs or ranges of jobs. I'm going to tick off all here just because I don't have a ton of data here in my demo system. And you could also select a date range. If it was a billing to your customer, you might want to run this for a month. But I'm going to go ahead and select all dates here. Now, this is going to show me all of the invoices for that criteria. But if you had run this, say, for one job, it's going to show you all invoices for that time period for that project. And if you were going to use this as a billing backup, you can exclude transactions as well. So you could, right click and say, oh, this transaction shouldn't really be in here. You could do a range, or you could exclude a vendor. Right, now if we scroll over here, you can also do some sorting and grouping based on any of these column headings up here. You can see the log on any of these. So here's all of my history, as well as the actual image. And then from here, I can also hit the report button, and I can package this up as a PDF with those invoices included, the images. And I have a number of grouping options if I wanted to group it maybe by, cost code or something, if you were doing, schedule of values in that. But when I generate the report, this here is what that's going to look like. I'll have a summary of all those invoices at the top, and then I'll have the invoice images following.
Leanne?
Yes.
I would just like to comment here. So for the clients on the call, if you do any construction management work, this is really key. What you can do to support your draw request on a monthly basis is attach every invoice that's been associated with that draw, all in one PDF to substantiate your billing. So, and our clients find great value in Timberscan for that.
Great. Yes, thank you. No, absolutely. This is really popular amongst our Timberscan users. The other inquiry I just wanted to highlight here quickly is the regular invoice inquiry. Now you can see what's in Timberscan as well as what's in Sage. And again, you can run it for a date range. But this is really nice for, companies that are, this would be first time here becoming paperless. You could get rid of all of those filing cabinets, not have to dig for anything. All of these columns here are sortable and searchable, and you can also do custom searches as well. So, if we look here and use the amount as an example, you could build these conditions in and say, I only want to see invoices that are greater than or equal to maybe a certain dollar amount. And then you can keep going. From that, you might also say, oh, and I only want to look at them for a certain vendor. You can also use this description field here. This is really nice if you're looking for something particular. Maybe you wanted to hone in on, hey, what did I pay the last time I had that service performed or something like that. You can come in here and use the contains option and search for keywords to really, try to isolate what you're looking for. So that can be a really nice time saver. And you can also hone in based on expense account. I know a lot of times auditors will say, I only want to see, show me all of your invoices for a certain GL account. And you can have the same reporting capability for this inquiry as well. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put my approver hat on here. Now, I'm going to minimize out of here, and just to show you, I was logged in here as Rebecca. If I minimize this here, I'm logged in here as Doug. So Doug is one of our approvers. Now, there's 3 ways to approve invoices within Timberscan, and I'm just going to mainly focus today on one just in the interest of time, but I will point out briefly here, you could approve for users that have access to, the Timberscan application. You could do your approvals right from the dashboard here. You could also do them off the main menu. So under approve, the system's telling me I got 9 invoices that need approval. And then you could come in here and narrow down, if maybe you only had a few minutes and you were going to be heading into a meeting and wanted to look at just for a certain vendor or a job or a company, you can do that as well and kind of hone in and narrow that down. But you'll notice the approval screen here looks exactly like the other screens. So again, from a consistency standpoint. The other method is using Timberscan Go. This is our web-based approval. And so all you need here is internet access and a web browser. And it's what we call a responsive user interface, which means that the system will automatically resize and optimize based on the device that you're on. Right, so this would be more of your desktop or laptop version. And I'll show you what it would look like on a smartphone or a tablet here in just a moment. But as an approver, when Doug logs in here, he's going to see his invoices in this card view. If he has a lot routed to him, you can do keyword searching. You also have some sorting options if you wanted to sort by invoice date, job number, or a vendor. I can see high-level information at this view, the invoice number, the date, and then the amount. And if I click on the summary button here, this will show me the coding for the invoice, and it'll also show me any pertinent notes. If the coding is correct and the amount is good and I want to go ahead and approve that invoice, I could just hit approve and I'm done. If I want to do some further investigation or maybe I want to look at the supporting documents, then I can just click on it and bring me into the detailed view here. So over here I would see any of my supporting documents. I have a number of annotation capabilities here. If I wanted to, maybe circle something or, put a rubber stamp on here, I can do that. Over here on the right, this is my header level information about the invoice. I can always maybe change the description there if I wanted. And then all of my functions here are available on the top. So I could put the invoice on hold or reject it. If I put it on hold or reject, I do have to put a reason why. I could add a note or I could view my existing notes. So again, I can see all the history and correspondence relating to the document. I could approve at this level as well. If I need to change the coding, I'm just going to click on the distribution button here, and I could, if I want to split the distribution, then I could just add a new line item. Or if I just want to change maybe a cost code or something, I would come in here, and this is a drop down into my cost code file in Sage. So I could just pick the code that I need. You also have tooltips available to you within here. So if you just click on the little eye, this gives you a tooltip about the cost code. For those existing Timberscan users, in the next version here of Timberscan Go, we just added the job inquiry. So this will show you all invoices for this particular job. Okay, so you can pull up those images as well. So like I said, that is new. It's in the latest version of Timberscan Go if you don't have that installed yet. We also have the vendor inquiry. So this is just showing all invoices for that particular vendor. And this was a fairly new addition as well. Now, for those of you that will be approving on a smartphone or a tablet, okay, this is a little simulator here we use. In this case, this is what it would look like on an iPad. And you can make this a little bit larger here, and you can rotate vertical or horizontal. But you can see the look and feel is very similar to the desktop view, it's just a little smaller. For those of you that would be using a phone, right, the same features and functions are available, it's just a slightly different layout. You'll notice those function buttons aren't across the top as they were on the other views. We've added these toggle buttons. Okay, we have one at the top here and one at the bottom. So you could still get to, like I said, same information, just laid out a little bit differently based on the device and the real estate that we have to work with. All right, so that is Timberscan Go. And like I said, this is, comes with Timberscan. So if there's any existing clients on the phone that are not using Timberscan Go, I would encourage you to implement it. Like I said, any existing Timberscan users would have access to this for no additional cost. The other thing that I wanted to touch on, if I come back here, I wanted to highlight Timberscan AIM. All right, so everything that we've kind of touched on so far has really been focused around the AP routing and approval. But as I mentioned, Timberscan is a complete document management system, so you can manage other content within the business here using advanced image management. Now, the process is very similar to the accounts payable side in that you acquire documents, you do the data entry, and then you have a search engine that kind of sits across all of it. So I'll go through this pretty quickly just in the interest of time, but here, you can select, very similar to accounts payable, you can select files from your network. You're going to assign a data entry group, and then you're going to process. From the data entry side, you'll notice you have the document categories and document types. We help you set this up as part of the implementation. So your Timberscan consultant will help you with this. And you define the categories of documents that you want to track and manage. In this case, if we said maybe project management, and then the types of documents within that category that you want to manage. So, if you said drawings, maybe as an example here, based on the type of document, you set up these key index fields that you want to track. And this is what allows you to be able to search for the document later. You have to have at least one of these fields mandatory, but you could have them all mandatory if you want. And these are lookups into your Sage files. So this is your Sage cost code listing. So you're selecting from, valid information. You can build workflows around any of these documents. So workflow is not limited to just accounts payable. You could add notes, you can route, you can look at the history here, you can email. So again, very similar to the accounts payable side. And then you also have the search engine here that kind of sits across the entire repository. Now, the one thing I will point out is this is new. So again, for existing Timberscan users, this is coming in the next release of Timberscan. We revamped the AIM searching. So we have this search grid. So you can come in here and you can search by category or type. You can also save searches. So in this case, instead of building a new one each time, I have one built for all categories and types of documents. And if I search in this grid view, it now looks very similar to the accounts payable inquiries, where you can drag any of these columns up and you can do grouping. You have all of these custom filters. So now I have, documents here sorted by job. And then you can expand these further. Okay, so you can view the documents, you can see if there's any workflows associated with the documents, add notes in that, and then you can also do custom searches here as well.
Leanne?
Yes.
Before we wrap the meeting, would it be possible for you to jump into Sage and show where this information resides and how the attachments, all the work that we're doing over here in the, in Timberscan, both in the paperless AP approval and AIM, how and where it resides over in Sage?
Absolutely. Yep. So let me close out of here. So as I mentioned, the process for selecting those invoices for payment is going to be the same. Once those invoices are paid, you can come in here to this checks function, and this allows you to attach the check image to that invoice packet that we talked about. And once the check image there is attached, if we come over here to Sage, and if we look at under our AP transactions here as an example, if we go ahead and look at the power equipment rentals that we've been looking at as part of the demonstration today, and click on this invoice 24011, you'll see the paperclip up here is highlighted. If we click on that and open, this is going to show us that packet of information. Right, so the same packet that we inquired on earlier within Timberscan, you can also access right from within your Sage system. You have the invoice, that review and approval page, the supporting document, as well as the payment record.
And so, and so whether you drill down through the job or you drill down through the vendor, whenever you get to that transaction, in the case of an AP invoice, you're able to locate and review the docket of information. On the AIM side, as you're classifying photos or deficiency holdbacks, or if those are, we get to define the records which we want to associate that document with. So when we're natively within the inquiry system within Sage, we're able to go and reference all of the AIM classified and indexed documents that are related to that job or to that cost code or that subcontract or that purchase order or that change order.
Yeah, no, exactly. And some companies will also use it for sorry. So yes, I was also saying some companies will use it for the personnel side of things, where you can have, if you're going to track and manage maybe HR related documents and you want those also to be available on the employee file in Sage, you can do that as well. So that's one of the things you define when you set up your document types, what Sage files you want those to be linked to.
Hey, Leanne, I thought we might open it up to questions. Is there anything else in particular that you wanted to touch on?
Nope, that was kind of the highlights of what I wanted to cover. So yeah, absolutely. If there's questions, please, everyone, fire away.
Any questions from existing clients or customers that are considering adding Timberscan?
Hi, Patrick and Leanne. It's Shelley from IDL. I just had a quick question. One of the things that we were looking at was a electronic purchase order system. That's not capable in this particular program?
Well, you can, through CCS, so you can issue purchase orders out of Sage, out of Job Cost Project Management, or out of the purchasing application. And through Commander, you could automatically create, you could print those to AIM, so they would be embedded into the system. In addition, that purchase order would be sitting as a supporting document under that vendor, waiting for the AP invoice to come in and be matched against it. Through the CCS, the Core Cloud Services, they have a field-based purchase system, which again has all the front-end validation, so only valid jobs, valid cost codes, valid vendors, things along those lines. You could create a purchase order in the field, route that through an approval process if you so chose. You could then also create a form that is a receiving ticket, which would allow you to receive the materials that you would purchase from the field. Both the receiving ticket and the PO would be available within Timberscan to do a triple match when that AP invoice comes in. So certainly through the Core Cloud Services, we have the ability to do field-based purchasing or any web-based purchasing.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Any other questions? Okay. Well, I'd like to thank everybody for their time. I know how busy everyone is. Leanne, great job on the presentation. I think you hit a nice mix between demonstrating what Timberscan is to people who don't use it and showing some of the additional new developments that have been made within the suite of products. As I mentioned, we'll send out a quick email to everyone. I'd encourage you to reach out to me if there's specific areas that I can further support you in your investigation. So thanks, everyone. Thanks, Leanne. Great job.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Okay, bye.